We arrive into this world not as human beings, but as experiments. The great experiment of how to shape a human being, all the way from that naked potential to being a fully functional adult. Not an easy task for any parent. So when you popped out of mama's belly, before you were given a name, who were you? Were you anybody at all? Or were you just raw potential? You arrive into the world as an unwitting participant. You're helpless and you're innocent, and from the moment you're born, your body starts absorbing everything it encounters. You're like a sponge, and you've got no say in what you're actually absorbing. So first of all, you absorb the physical world that you're born into. Was there enough reassuring touch? Was there enough warmth? Was there enough food to nurture you? And then your emotions come online after a few months, and you start to absorb through the heart as well. Was there enough love? Was there enough compassion when you needed it? Did you always have to cry a lot just to be picked up and comforted? Have you ever wondered how much those early pre-verbal memories have actually shaped you? Because all the medical and scientific research these days shows that a limited amount of love, a limited amount of nurturing and physical warmth actually correlates with some level of psychological and energetic dysfunction later in life, and especially in the area of relationship. But hey, back to our story. You're now a toddler, and at last your brain comes online. But of course, it's not really just your brain, because you share a lot with your ancestors, those people who made that genetic cocktail that was poured into your tiny self. So before life or anyone else gets the chance to kind of mess you up a little, you already have a genetic hangover from generations past. Hey, thanks, great-granddad, for the anxiety and for the receding hairline. Yep, genetics lay the foundation for your temperament, your predisposition to certain moods, and your likelihood of being an optimist, or maybe that kid who always sees the clouds and never the silver linings. Well, now you're off to preschool, so we've got to add in your environment. Whether your parents, caregivers and teachers are saints or sinners, whether they're emotionally distant or raging storms of dysfunction, they are the archetypes of your early neural pathways. They build the framework of your attachment style and how you perceive love, how you perceive safety, how you perceive belonging, and maybe even how you perceive life itself. Of course, you don't get to pick your parents or your caregivers, and that, my friends, is a great cosmic joke. And then there's the culture that you're dropped into. Fast forward a few years and now you're off to school, where you sponge up the gender roles, the societal expectations, the relentless whispers or shouts about what makes a good person. You pick up all the shoulds and all the should nots. Oh, and let's never forget whatever religion was foisted on you. You know, the religion can be the cherry on top of your oh so bubbly and maybe explosive psychological cocktail, because you know you might have grown up in an environment filled with warmth and stability, or perhaps you're dodging emotional landmines from adults who maybe should have sorted themselves out before even thinking of caring for children. Either way, your tiny brain is forming neural pathways, building your psychological structure based on whatever sensory, emotional, and societal input that you actually got. Gender roles, cultural norms, economic circumstances, fear, love, shame, guilt, power. All of these are being baked into your psyche. And by the time you're old enough to realize what's happening, those early experiences have carved grooves into your brain, and they shape how you see yourself, how you see others, and how you see the world. And so from the time you're toddling around on unsteady legs, you've actually been handed this dualistic view of the world. There's good and there's bad. There's angels and demons. And of course, there's your eternal soul hanging in the balance. These societal norms in the collective consciousness don't just shape your behavior, they actually burrow deep into your psyche, and they take a lot of digging to uproot them completely. You learn that even your thoughts can make you a bad person, and that's a heavy load for any kid to bear, because all you ever wanted was to be loved. By the time you're old enough to realize that everything you soaked up was more about them than about you, the damage is kind of done. You're now who you think you are. It is you, isn't it? You're you. But who is you? Because you didn't create your ego structure. That's pretty obvious. That structure may spin wildly between arrogance and maybe low self-belief. Sometimes you might love your own reflection, and sometimes you hate yourself, although you're still putting on a great show. We can be masters, can't we, of pretense. But perhaps that's not really who we are. Perhaps these are all learned behaviours. No matter how much confidence you portray, there will always be days when there's a highly critical voice inside you, telling you you're not enough. You're not good enough, you're deficient, you're somehow defective, or maybe you simply don't deserve. So, yeah, you didn't get any choice in any of this as a child. But here's the truth. Once you're an adult, you do have a choice. You can, of course, live with what you were given and perhaps replicate a lot of what was handed down to you, or you can get very curious. You can start the journey of unpacking all of the junk and questioning all those neural grooves, and maybe, just maybe, you can start making space for new grooves, which you get to carve. And then someday, if like me you're lucky, you'll find out who you really are. Because one thing is for sure, you're not everything that shaped you. That's just the surface you, the one that life and circumstance carved out. But the you that was born, red, raw and beautiful, is underneath all of that. You are still there. Your vast capacity and potential is still there. So yes, you get to choose. Do you want to clean up the mess that was plonked on top of you? Do you want to find out what's really there when you dive all the way through? Imagine, if you can, diving into and through, let's say, the feeling of being deficient or of not being enough. Imagine discovering that it's not actually real. That it's just a lie that was superimposed on you by others who also didn't feel good enough and didn't know any better. So when you do come out the other side, there's something there that your mind didn't expect, because it was there before your mind began to even develop. On the other side, you discover your raw life energy, that source energy that birthed you. It's completely untouched by negativity. It's free of all the shoulds and all the shouldn'ts, and it's available now to be sculpted, or perhaps I should say resculpted, because now finally you are the sculptor. All of that energy, freed up, can be sculpted. And from there, from that inner place in you, you can create the life you want, because the external will always match the internal. Welcome.